With fans returning to stadia for the 21-22 season, it's tempting to see COVID's effect on football as beginning to wane, but the pandemic, still far from over in much of the world, has left cracks in European football which are years from being fixed. We've already covered the ways in which coronavirus has hastened Barcelona's demise, but the situation in Italy is only slightly less worrying. At the time of writing, there have been just 13 Serie A transfers this summer costing 10 million or more, and of those, one was Christian Romero, who joined Atalanta for 14 mil before switching to Tottenham at more than triple the cost, while 4 others were compulsory purchase agreements following loans last season. By comparison, moves of that level have been constant in the Premier League, with just 5 clubs failing to spend over 10 million on a player so far. And even Italy's greatest superpower, Juventus, are feeling the pinch, with their only acquisition to date the confirmation of Weston McKennie's switch from Schalke, and the rest of the window spent negotiating a ridiculous loan-to-buy arrangement for Manuel Locatelli to head off interest from Arsenal. And when the Gunners can comfortably outspend the biggest team in Italy, you know things are dire. But most troubling of all is the situation at Inter Milan, who ended an 11-year wait for a title just 3 months ago, only to lose Antonio Conte 3 days later. Since then, they've sold Achraf Hakimi to PSG, agreed to send Romelu Lukaku back to Chelsea, and are reported to be discussing a Lautaro Martinez sale with Atletico, Arsenal and Spurs, sparking rumours that the club will consider bids for any player this summer. So how did it come to this? Are the Nerazzurri on the path to liquidation? And what will the team look like next campaign? On today's Explained, we're inspecting the Black and Blues bruises. The first thing to say about the crisis in Milan is that it's not altogether surprising. When COVID rolled across the world in early 2020, it couldn't have been worse timing for the Nerazzurri, who had spent the 4 previous summers investing heavily in the squad, forking out over 300 million euros net in that period. And while there were some impressive hits, Skriniar, Hakimi and Lautaro for example, there were far more costly misses, like João Mario, Radia Nainggolan and Gabriel Barbosa. So a devastating global crisis was far from well timed, and unlike most clubs, Inter found their owners made life more difficult, not easier. Il Biscioni is currently owned by Chinese conglomerate Suning, but as we reported in our Chinese Super League video back in March, all is far from peachy in Nanjing. According to The Athletic, half the value has been wiped off the company's shares since 2018, and the COVID squeeze saw them forced to sell off nearly a quarter of their assets to Chinese super corporation Alibaba earlier this year, and divert funds from their sporting interests towards their core business, retail. That, coupled with a weekly attendance of 42,000, the best in Italy, dropping to 0 thanks to COVID, meant Inter made a loss of 102 million euros in 2019-20 and struggled to pay their players over the first half of the 2021 season. So, in order to keep their heads above water, the club agreed a deal of their own with investment firm Oaktree Capital, a US company which has pledged to provide loans of 275 million euros to help Inter through their financial troubles. However, just a fifth of that loan has been made available to the Nerazzurri so far, and the club hierarchy went into the summer with 2 clear goals: making a profit of at least 80 million euros and trimming the wage bill by 15 to 20%. The sale of Hakimi went a long way towards the first target, but though the club was reluctant to lose star striker Romelu Lukaku, his departure was necessary to meet the second goal. According to Gazzetta dello Sport, the Belgian earned 7.5 million euros after tax last season, the equivalent of 290k a week pre-tax and the third highest salary in Italy after Ronaldo and De Ligt. With him out of the door, the club has ditched 5% of their total wage bill in a single move, as well as adding a reported 120 million euros to their bank balance. Unfortunately for Inter fans, that might not be the end of the sales. English media report that Tottenham may have managed to agree a fee with the Milan outfit for Lautaro Martinez, and rumours from the Italian press suggest that even star midfielder Nicolo Barella could be on the market, and the situation could yet get worse. According to court documents filed in early August, Steven Zhang, Inter's club chairman and the son of Suning founder Zhang Jindong, is currently the object of a lawsuit aimed at recovering a loan of $250 million, adding to a reported $1.75 billion in debts already accrued by Suning. And given that Zhang liquidated his other football club, CSL giant and reigning champions Jiangsu Suning, earlier this year, it's clear that he'd be willing to make an unpopular decision if it enabled him to escape financial pressure. That means that Zhang would probably be willing to sell any Inter asset, or to simply let the loan from Oaktree go unrepaid. and with Suning's 68.55% stake in Inter acting as the collateral on that agreement, failure to balance the books would result in Oaktree taking ownership of the club. Either way, it seems that the big decisions at Inter Milan are unlikely to be made by someone with the club's best interests at heart. More heartbreak may be heading for the San Siro. One way the club can help limit the damage is to stay successful on the field. As one of the founding members of the Super League, Inter were hoping to benefit from a €230 million infrastructure grant, as well as improved TV revenue in the near future. And while that dream may have evaporated, they could bring in around €40 million a year if they can maintain their Champions League spot, enough to keep up some of their loan repayments and avoid insolvency at the very least. The man tasked with doing that is Simone Inzaghi, and Inter could certainly have found a worse option for the dugout. Lazio boss for the last 5 years, Inzaghi led the Biancocelesti to a Coppa Italia triumph in 2019 and returned the club to the Champions League for the first time since 2008. And while that may not match up to the CV of his predecessor, Antonio Conte, Inzaghi is less likely to complain about a limited budget, having rejuvenated Lazio with a net spend of under €1 million across his half-decade in charge, finding value in underrated journeymen like Luis Alberto, Lucas Leiva and Ciro Immobile rather than buying ready-made stars. He'll find a superior squad in his new dressing room, but still, he may well need to do the same again. Lukaku and Hakimi contributed 46 goals between them in Serie A last season, 52% of Inter's total, and added over 7 shots a game to the side's attack, again over half the club's entire output. But the stature of the players leaving is not matched by the rumoured incomings. Though the Italian press have reported interest in Fiorentina's Dusan Vlahovic and Atalanta's Duvan Zapata as Lukaku replacements, Corriere della Sera suggests that both would be beyond the club's means at north of €40 million, making a cut price swoop for 35-year-old Edin Dzeko the most likely outcome at present, hardly the apology signing the San Siro faithful must have hoped for. It's also poor future planning. Serie A may be kinder to older players, but building a geriatric team on big wages is not a path to long-term prosperity, and Inter would be better off dipping into their Primavera or youth squad, which has finished in the top 3 of the Italian Youth League in each of the last 4 campaigns. Perhaps if a move for Denzel Dumfries or Hector Bellerin doesn't pan out, they could find a solution there for the gaping hole Hakimi leaves at right wing-back, but other issues will not be so easily fixed. Antonio Conte is a serial winner, but his taste for experienced players has left the club with a luxury roster. Christian Eriksen is still highly paid but won't play again this year, and may not ever be allowed to feature in Serie A, with the division forbidding defibrillator implants like the one he was fitted with after his collapse at the Euros. Arturo Vidal remains on huge wages at the age of 34, despite playing just over 1,000 league minutes last season. The troublesome Radia Nainggolan returns from loan, ready to collect his own big pay packet. And Hakan Çalhanoğlu has joined on a free transfer from rivals Milan. A good capture in theory, but one set to cost the club roughly $180k a week next season, double his salary in red and black. If Inter can't find a way to move on some of these expensive names, or counterbalance them with youngsters whose quality outstrips their cost, the team is likely to retain one of Italy's biggest wage bills over the next few seasons while declining on the field. And with their parent company fixated on saving their core business, it doesn't look like help is on its way anytime soon. After a decade of Juventus dominance, Inter's Scudetto should have been a glorious achievement announcing their return to Europe's top table. But an unfortunate combination of short-termism, overspending and Covid has soured Inter's moment of triumph and turned fan sentiment toxic just as stadiums reopen. If early results are poor, things could get very bleak very fast, and with Serie A the strongest it's been in years, there are plenty of sides ready to take the Nerazzurri's place if they falter. Hardly the best situation in which to rebuild. They may manage to hold on to Barella and Martinez this season and maybe even the one after, but unless they can rethink their recruitment strategy and shed the big earners while keeping performances solid, they may find themselves in the predicament from which rivals Milan have only just emerged. A decade of mid-table mediocrity and humiliation on the European stage. So that's our take on Inter's incredible collapse this summer, but let us know what you think in the comments below. Can they maintain performance levels, or does Simone Inzaghi have an impossible task ahead of him? If you enjoyed this video, drop us a like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to never miss an upload. We'll see you next time.